My experience with the scientifically advanced crater was chronologically disjointed, because it was here when I finally realized I was playing the DLCs slightly out of order. The events happening here preceding our arrival actually lead into Dead Money. It doesn't really affect anything, but it's interesting to see the themes consistently interwoven into persisting stories. The through lines becoming more apparent as context is added to the locations, objects, and characters we've been interacting with all this time. But loose connections aren't enough. Part of me believes we can remove this expansion without significant loss to the continued narrative. I find myself having a hard time justifying its existence, which is a central theme of The Big Empty, and one we're about to talk about a whole lot more. We find ourselves getting abducted upon interacting with a crashed satellite at the Mojave Drive-In. We awaken to find we've been lobotomized, our heart removed, and backbone missing. But somehow, we're still functional and we still have the rest of our equipment. So it's not all bad. Leaving our chambers, we meet the geniuses: Boros, Dala, Dr. O, 8, and Klein. Finally, some equals.
The Lobotomite understands us.
They're responsible for the management and experiments of Big Mountain, under the direction of Klein.
The collective geniuses of... we!
There was a sixth genius, Mobius, whom exiled himself for reasons we'll soon learn. But his previous smart home, known as the Sink, is our current domicile. The geniuses explained to us that after the Great War, a new project was started with the purpose of preserving them by transforming them into this, allowing them to continue their work indefinitely. With that, the think tank was created. Over time, their research continued becoming more questionable and sinister, as a number of different factors came to blur the line of ethics. Now, I loved this intro at first, but what the f***? Around the 200-minute mark, it started to drag on. These guys just wouldn't stop.
Get the spray before it excretes all over everything.
Okay, now we can go.
Just look at it.
Okay, now
the
we
way
can.
It blinks.
Okay, now we
It's
can
like
go.
a big hairless
Penises?
teddy bear.
Okay, got the mission. Now we can go.
Enough!
Surprisingly, our awakening was a mistake, but we can't freely leave. There's a barrier keeping us and them inside the crater. To pass through it, you need a body and a brain. So happens that the think tank have been working on transplanting their brains into bodies. But the Sink's autodock has been malfunctioning, but those problems are now remedied due to some imperfections with our brain, forcing it to alter its programming to fix the problem. Thus, our brain contains the data necessary for the think tank to modify themselves to slip past the barrier to leave Big Mountain. This means that we can't trust the geniuses either, since we share the same goal of escape.
Our intentions exactly.
Unfortunately for all of us, our brain was stolen by Mobius, and he doesn't seem reasonable.
Wait for the end. That's all. Goodbye.
So for the time being, Big Mountain is just a high-tech prison. Stepping out into the crater almost feels like stepping out of the vault for the first time. It's alluring. And in good old-fashioned Fallout free roam, we're able to explore it at will, and there's good reason to. The main quest can be completed rather quickly if we beelined our way to each objective, but they give us plenty of reasons to survey the site and investigate the lore of the Big Empty, which we'll cover soon enough. As we traverse the crater, we encounter a variety of obstacles: lobotomites, bugs, canines, robots. We've seen some enemy types before, but repurposed or recontextualized, without seeming out of place. Despite them, we're surprisingly well equipped for it. This thing sucks. Ah, that's better. What the fuck is that? This variety of creatures and items are further supplemented by home base interactivity, complemented by a few robotic appliances of individual personalities. As such, there's a couple of quirks. Actually, a lot of quirks regarding our room.
I think the Central Intelligence Unit is a bit of a snob.
How can I illuminate you?
I will burn the world.
Funny personalities that offer aid, crafting, and conversations. Some insightful,
Blank books encourage the reader not to question.
others seductive.
That bitch. She thinks she's so much better than everybody just because her processors are bigger.
It's kind of hot. Disgusting, vile writing. and I'd suggest not switching them on. The toaster was cool too, but my favorite robot was the seed planter.
Ready to receive your seed.
Considering that companions cannot accompany us and we travel alone, it's nice to have others to chat with. Rather quickly, we start to feel pretty comfortable here. But we can't sit around forever. We're imprisoned after all, and the Mojave's at stake. To recover our missing brain and escape, we're obliged to help the think tank against Mobius, for a time. As it happens, we have our confrontation with the insane brain, and our expectations of a grand villain are subverted.
Hey, can you walk into my left, right FOV cone?
Nonetheless, we're forced to conquer the giant robo-scorpion in character-specific fashion. Afterwards, we wax philosophy with our own brain, who's received some individuality.
I'm not the one that makes us go charging off to New Vegas on missions of ill-conceived revenge.
It's played for laughs, but there's a degree of truth to it.
Overrated biological feedback.
We can't feel what we need to, but also can't think without our brains.
And have we forgotten who got us shot in the head and buried in a shallow grave?
Despite reaching agreement, we can't just plop our brain back into our skull, as the tools necessary for the procedure are back at the think tank.
And that is assuming, of course, that one of them doesn't take a fancy to our body and decide to slip his own brain into it instead.
Turns out, with my mind, I'm able to outwit and confuse the geniuses into thinking that I'm actually Mobius.
It is Mobius.
With this ruse, we coerce them into servitude.
Partner with you, my foe, my rival, my foremost critic.
And with all of our organs reunited, we end everyone's stories. And we maintain access to the sink, our home away from home, with all the benefits attached. Now, most of the individual executives of the think tank don't necessarily merit a closer look into their personalities, but a few short interactions do raise compelling introspectives.
Seeing your lips and mouth forming words, how does it feel to have the flesh roll around in your mouth like that?
Ideologically, they are obsessed with knowledge and will betray anyone to carry out new experiments. To them, the wasteland will serve as a fresh, fertile testing ground if they manage to relocate. However, a recent dispute obfuscated these goals. After a heated argument with Mobius, Klein removed and scattered all of the sync's personality chips. Mobius, in retribution, hacked his colleagues' databanks, rewriting their chronometers, geometers, and mapping programs to render them incapable of understanding time or history.
This is now their world. Here, Big Mountain.
In the process, he accidentally damaged some of their memories and knowledge, creating a jumbled, fragmented version of themselves. Remorseful of his egregious actions, he also alters his own memory and flees in exile, by which he focuses on intimidating the think tank.
Why did he build robot scorpions with intelligence training stingers? It enforces the recursion loop and our perception programming.
When we met Mobius ourselves, dispelling our rampantly mad doctor impressions, he reveals a singular goal: to keep the geniuses from being unleashed on the world. Since our brain is the key, stealing it is a means to that end.
Sometimes they would take things too far.
So the erected barriers and skepticisms towards outsiders are warranted.
You can thank our visitor for that. He wrecked the whole place.
Father Elijah left a trail of destruction in his wake, as he too was initially apprehended by the think tank. His technological prowess, however, allows him to easily escape. He conducts a few experiments of his own, with readily available inhabitants and resources to play with. Lasers, bomb collars, the list goes on. Unethical experiments that triggered the Brotherhood of Steel to dispatch the assassin Christine to hunt him down. He narrowly avoids execution by using the ghoulified prisoners as walking bombs, resulting in Christine's capture by the think tank. After learning of the Sierra Madre from Ulysses, here on other business, he escapes Big Mountain via train, sabotaging the tunnels, creating the prison we enjoy today. Christine continues to be experimented on, resulting in numerous traumas, scarring, the loss of her voice. Ulysses then rescues Christine, as he's a neutral party in the feud between the two. He initially came to Big Mountain seeking the source of abnormal weather patterns tied to the atmosphere of Hopeville, another town subject to Big Mountain testing, now destroyed. Disillusioned with all other factions, he converses with the think tank about philosophy and history. He manages to reawaken latent memories of the past, reuniting them with their identity, their humanity. giving them a case of the old world blues.
Klein might know more. He talked to him, and let him leave the think tank. Hope he knew what he was doing.
But what are the old world blues? Put simply, it's when people reminisce about the olden days, back when things were ambiguously great, and everything was simple and people got along. Usually in contrast to the present, where there's strife and struggle, a worsening of the present and future, manifesting anxiety and depression that makes one long to return to the past. There's some subtle themes here about clinging to the past that are better explored in Dead Money, but that theme is more assigned to the subtext rather than being the main theme. Regardless, the think tank's reflection is soon lost as Ulysses departs and Mobius takes action. Hey, I'm just taking a break away from I just needed a moment to say that if you like what you see, leave a comment and a like, click the bell. It's free and it really helps. I enjoy all the comments, contentions, corrections. Join the Reddit, join the Discord, and check out the Patreon if you want to support me directly. Also, stay tuned in to the community tab for updates on the next one. The more we get to know each other, the closer we get to The main theme broached here is that of humanity. What does it mean to be human? A person? Someone? Is it the body? Or is it the mind? It might seem ridiculous to consider ourselves human without a mind, but as lobotomites, we have somewhat of a say. A simple analogy applied to the real world allows us to ask, what does it mean for people that are brain dead? Those that are stuck in their unconscious with no sign of brain activity. Is their body just a husk? A shell to easily dispose of? And the person we knew is long gone? On the flip side, if we could copy-paste their mind into a sufficiently advanced computing system, would we consider that human? If that's the case, could we then use that as a template and create an entirely new human from scratch? A being which is sufficiently demonstrating a degree of consciousness. To think about it in another way is by using the philosophical thought experiment of the ship of Theseus. If you're not familiar with it, it goes like this. You have a ship made of wood. It comes the time to replace one plank of wood. Is it still the same ship? What if you change 2 planks? Eventually, you'll keep asking the question until all planks are replaced. By then you ask, is it still the same ship? If not, at what point did it change? From the first plank or the last? Perhaps this is the effect we observe in the executives who are in the final stages of body-mind separation, their body being replaced piece by piece. And these detachments seem to take them further away from behaving or understanding the abstractness of humanity. They're still limited, that they're missing some key functions to truly enjoy the sense of personhood. So, referring back to the ship of Theseus, it supports the notion that personhood is actually a collection of experiences that persists with continuity through a form of being, rather than a mere collection of objects that have existed collectively. Perhaps the sense of personhood can't be restricted to the biology of neither body nor mind, but instead through the subjective experiences that persist through a period of time, through history.
Who are you? I do not know your history.
So now we're suggesting that defining personhood includes history and personal experiences as fundamental aspects of the equation. The scientists of the think tank seem to be to one end.
They have all forgotten themselves, the world, sense of time, and history.
Thus, moving them farther away from that definition. To some extent, the past is important to informing who we are. So if we lose that, do we lose part of the current iterations of ourselves? Will we fall into the same pitfalls that we've stumbled into before? Will the negative character traits we've pushed to the shadows finally see the sun again? Without the governance of historical failure or ethical boundaries, they focus solely on science and survival, the two things they're awkwardly adept at. One could argue the need for old world blues, the memories of the past, to bring them around, to restrain them. But we hastily forget the negative mental hurdles attached to reminiscence. Even with attempts to restore some of the think tank's humanity, with reference to the brain copy-paste analogy, how close to personhood can we actually bring them to, as they continue to exist as brains in a vat? How you respond to this next section might answer some of these questions for you. Whatever you decide about your vacation to Big Mountain, we learn that a few things are certain. Humanity and personhood are flexible and expanding terms that seem to shift with the times. a push and pull between two fundamental ideas of decision making, deontology and utilitarianism. The deontological approach states that outcomes do not justify the means, whereas for utilitarians, the outcomes do determine the means of the greatest benefit expected for the greatest number of people. As we explore Big Mountain, we're exposed to the results of various amoral, post hoc justified research that violates both ethical and moral constraints. Frederick Sinclair allowed Big Mountain to use the Sierra Madre as a testing ground for Elijah's coveted technologies, which backfired catastrophically, as we all know. But in case you missed it, check out my other videos suggested at the top. Another prime example is that of Dr. Boros at the X8 Testing Research Center, going so far as to put his own beloved pup up for science, pumping him full of psycho and buff out, making this monstrosity. A mechanically altered abomination of the only loyal companion that would allow him to do such horrible things to it, because they were raised together. So where are the ethical bounds of science, and who gets to decide them? Now we're starting to sound like Father Elijah. The think tank has committed inhuman crimes in the name of science, with many innovations peaking around the curve of discovery. So when do the ends justify the means? When does science go too far? As a result of unrestricted experimentation, new horrors are created. The Night Stalkers were an attempt at preserving the DNA of rattlesnakes headed for extinction. Good intentions gone awry, thus continue to plague and doom thousands over the survival of an unadaptable dying species. The Cazadors are another offshoot for potentially rewarding discoveries, but we know what it's like to contend with these ruthless creatures escaped from captivity. Arguably, the worst experiments of them all were done on humans, their minds violated and bodies enslaved. They serve as caretakers and experimental dummies for creations that can save lives. But which life? Will future results justify their price? If not, then what was the point? On one end of the spectrum you have unethical human and hybrid experimentation, the other, megalomaniacal kitchen appliances.
Soon the world will burn in nuclear fire!
Preservation of existence, or prolonged suffering and addiction.
Oh God, give me the coffee cup, please! It's sitting there in your pack, taunting me!
Eventually, a line must be drawn.
Of course I'm obsessed. They made me this way. You think I don't know how crazy I sound? They programmed me to know that too!
Of course, we're presented a similar opportunity to exercise ethical consistency by participating in the creation of Building Roxy, another mechanically spliced animal which can accompany us as a temporary follower. Is it morally right to create or alter or otherwise bring life about simply because we can? Or should there be a purpose to it? As usual, there's no right answer here. Instead, a challenge to our application of our morals, the sliding weight of powerful benefits against the cost of potential negatives. The past can tell us what we did wrong, but it's also too late. The future can justify it, but also condemn. Seemingly, with all ambiguous moral reasoning, the answer must lie somewhere in the middle. OldWorldBlues nails the questions, but fails to hammer home the execution. I was longing for proper character development with either the think tank or the lore, maybe even the toaster, but the dialogue wasn't as tight as previous expansions.
Let me radar scan you. Slowly.
With every single character droning on, and not really emphasizing much more of the themes with each extended conversation. It's the major upset of the content because in every other aspect it felt like the true Fallout experience. The staging point in the center of the map was convenient. Big Mountain had the verticality and openness of Honest Hearts, exploratory freedom that contrasted the Sierra Madres, and atmospherically and gameplay-wise, they couldn't be farther apart. There were interesting weapons, enemies, lore, the multitude of things to discover and optional tests to fully upgrade the stealth suit were as engrossing as they were immersive.
We're okay on Med-X, until we have to numb the pain.
Sorry, X-13. Some pain can't be numbed. Sadly, I've concluded that this one falls just short of narrative praise, because the themes never feel like they're at center stage, instead tucked behind the antics of the wacky characters. Which isn't necessarily bad, but it creates a weaker, sloppier conveyance than the focused writing of the prior DLCs.
You must walk upon your many penised feet.
The main positives, yet simultaneous downside, are its ties to the base game and recurring characters that have passed through, which are now long gone. So despite the body of the gameplay being robust and sturdy, it struggles to stand on its own. The brains are elsewhere, and it's up to us to seek it out. It means that if we're interested in returning to the Big Empty, it'll be purely for adventure, because the nuances of the themes will be hidden in the shadow of the gameplay. Though, I could be wrong, and it could just be a case of the old world blues.
The world isn't ready for that kind of too far thing taking.
Whew.